This is how a C-grade paper and $5,000 made me a billionaire.
This is Fred, and in 1965, he was confident that his idea was going to change the world. An overnight delivery service in a computer information age. The original idea came when I wrote a term paper as an undergrad. It covers the whole country and provides overnight delivery anywhere within 25 miles of any of the 77 central market cities. Fred's professor returned his paper and told him, "The concept is interesting and well-formed, but in order to earn better than a C, the idea must be feasible." Fred challenged his professor. The professor didn't understand how the goddamn world worked, and that the country was spreading out technologically, that our society was to be smarter, not to work harder. This student has now become one of the world's richest people. His journey proved risky and challenging, but all the worthwhile. While on the brink of suicide, he was able to make a life-changing gamble that beat the odds. Fred grew up in Mississippi with a family of 6. His parents, an older brother, and 2 sisters. Much of his early years were held up by crutches and braces. He was the 1 in 1,200 children that caught a rare disease, leg calvi-perthes, a disease that more commonly affects boys under the age of 10. When Fred turned 4, his father passed away. His father, Smith, was a businessman, a millionaire, after founding a restaurant chain called Toddle House and the Dixie Greyhound Lines. Worried about the financial future of his kids, Smith left behind a trust fund in which they could use after turning 21. In the meantime, with mom's caring support, Fred was able to beat the bone disease and start living a normal life. In high school, he participated in basketball and football. Later, he picked up flying as a hobby, and the year after, Fred formed a record label company with 2 friends, Ardent Record Company. The company did well, but Fred left the 2 friends to enroll at Yale University. During his 3rd year, he crammed an assignment the night before in hopes of getting a good grade while writing about his passion. "I had to write about something it sounded like I knew about. I knew how to fly, so I wrote my paper on air cargo. Buy a fleet of jets, fly only in the middle of the night, shuffle packages at one centrally located hub, pick up and deliver to customers' doorsteps, and make that a service." The professor handed back his thesis and told him such a business would never work. It wasn't going to compete with trains. It wasn't going to compete with trucks. There was a whole brand new market out there that nobody had even considered. Supposedly, he received his average C grade for his efforts. Fred buried the idea and continued to pursue what he knew and loved best, aviation. He served in the US Marine Corps as a platoon leader and forward air controller, flying in the backseat of the OV-10. He earned numerous medals and was discharged with the rank of captain 3 years later in 1969. "I got so sick of destruction and blowing things up that I came back determined to do something more constructive." After returning, he visited his father-in-law to work at his aircraft company in Little Rock called Arkansas Aviation. Fred helped shift the company's focus from aircraft maintenance to becoming more of an aircraft dealership. In just a year, the company saw an increase of $9 million in revenue. Fred learned 2 things from this experience. 1, how difficult it was to get parts from point A to B within a day, and 2, sales was not his cup of tea. His time in the Marines was also spent carefully observing how they handled deliveries. Current parcel delivery relied heavily on the passenger market. They were based on whether there were flights to and from a destination. If no one was flying to a country, packages would remain idle. This includes legal documents, high-tech instruments, medicine, and blood and organ transfers. Based on his college paper, he came up with a system that could, in theory, complete deliveries within 24 hours. He realized that packages did not have to take the most direct route. In fact, they should take the most efficient route. This route would also save the Federal Reserve Bank $3 million per day. He revisited the concept and created a system that could integrate both air and ground transportation. Fred had the idea to use a hub-and-spoke system. "The original idea came when I wrote a term paper as an undergrad," says Smith. Packages would arrive from all various locations and to be sorted at a centralized sorting facility and then sent off to other hubs until they can be delivered in a spoke manner. He needed 14 jets and several vans before he could begin the full operation. People thought we were bananas. We were too ignorant to know that we weren't supposed to be able to do certain things. He turned towards his sisters to get a loan. They were the board of directors of the Fred Smith Enterprise Company, founded by his father. I thought there would be basketfuls of checks right away, says Smith. With his passion and knowledge in the air freight industry, the right investors soon came on board. By 1973, the company was ready to go, and Fred's dream was now a reality. He had raised $90 million from venture capitalists, $4 million from his sisters, and $250,000 of his own. Within 2 years, the company lost almost a third of its cash. They were losing over $30,000 per day, $1 million per month, and $29 million in 2 years. If Fred's idea was so great, why was he losing so much in such little time? Was it something he overlooked? Was his professor right? Where did the money go? The answer lies here. Fuel. Canada, Japan, Netherlands, UK, US, Portugal, Rhodesia, and South Africa. The decision to stop exporting oil to the US caused oil prices to quadruple within 6 months. This was known as the oil embargo of 1973.
We are heading toward the most acute shortages of energy since World War II.
With the oil embargo, an existing gasoline shortage became worse. Heating oil also was in short supply.
Couldn't sell big cars at all. As a matter of fact, people that had bought big cars were bringing them back and leaving them on the lot. So here, I don't want it. I won't be able to buy gas for it.
Drivers and pilots were paying for gas using their own personal credit cards. People kept holding on to uncashed checks in an attempt to keep the company afloat. During the chaos, his sisters found an opportunity. Laura and Fredette filed a lawsuit against Fred. He was accused of forging signatures on bank documents and deceiving Fredette by taking all her shares in their father's company. With most of his money gone and debt rising, Fred fell into depression. He told his banker he was considering suicide. One day, Fred received a fuel bill of $27,000. Immediately, he flew out of town to meet with an aerospace and defense corporation, General Dynamics, in hopes of their help. Without fuel, there would be no jets. Without jets, there would be no more deliveries. And without that, the business would no longer exist. The meeting failed, and Fred was already back in the airport sitting empty-handed. Who was going to secure him funding on a Friday? Fred canceled his return flight home, withdrew all of the company's cash, and flew straight to Las Vegas. Blackjack. You're looking for a number that beats the dealers without going over 21. Fred spent 2 to 3 days in the casino and returned home immediately after. No one really knows what happened that weekend, including Fred himself. When management woke up Monday, they were shocked after finding out what had happened. I said, "You mean you took our last $5,000? How could you do that?" He shrugged his shoulders and said, "What difference does it make? Without the funds for the fuel companies, we couldn't have flown anyways." The bank account was now sitting at $32,000. I asked Fred where the funds had come from, and he'd responded, "The meeting with General Dynamics board was a bust, and I knew we needed money for Monday, so I took a plane to Las Vegas and won $27,000. The $27,000 wasn't decisive, but it was an omen that things would get better, Smith says. Fred's luck held again. It was not much, but it came at a critical time and kept us in business for another week. But luck was all they needed, because one success leads to another. Shortly after returning from Vegas, Fred raised $11 million, and the company nearly brought $40 million in revenue. And today, the company now generates a revenue of $45 billion. Fred was proven innocent of the forgery charges and settled the suit with his sisters out of court. Some say this was the biggest gamble in the company's history. While true, Fred has also won the gamble of life on many occasions. This is Frederick Wallace Smith, CEO and founder of FedEx. Time rules over us without mercy, not caring if we're healthy or ill, hungry or drunk, Russian, American, beings from Mars. It's like a fire. It can either destroy us or keep us warm. We live or we die by the clock. We never turn our back on it, and we never ever allow ourselves the sin of losing the track of time.